purport to get students to the same level.
My Lords, I venture looking around the House to ask the Noble Lady the Minister two questions. The first of which is the statement refers to trying to deal with students, quote, paying far into the future for a degree that did not offer them good value, close quote. That led me to look to a very recent House of Commons report on student debt in general, which really has some terribly telling figures. The total level of student debt is about to pass £200 billion. The maximum rate of loans that students are paying is 7.1%, and the average debt at graduation this year is £45,600. And looking back to the history, 2002 was the first year cohort with large amounts of debt. More than 20 years later, 44% of those debts are still not paid off. So question one to the Noble Lady the Minister, paying far into the future, is the government really taking account of the impact, economic, social and health, of now the second generation of students having to keep paying off debts, many of which they'll never pay it off at all, that'll weigh them down over now 40 years? And my second question builds on the comments from the Noble Lady Baroness Blackstone and others. And the question of, even if, as the Noble Lady the Minister asks us, we put the question of income to one side and we just look at graduate jobs, as the Noble Lady Baroness Blackstone said, there's a very much regional issue here. People may do a maths degree in some places, but they might choose, because of the circumstances of their life, not to move to a place where they can get a graduate job, as defined by the Office for Students. But that doesn't mean they're not benefiting from that degree. And what about, let's say, a grandmother who the government says they're keen on lifelong learning, a grandmother who does a history degree and puts all of her time and energy and talents when she's not caring for her grandchildren into doing local history and writing up local history. That's never going to make any money, but it's actually hugely contributing to the community, and her enthusiasm will undoubtedly transmit to the grandchildren and their friends. Or what about someone who's a carer and they start a degree, the university knows they're a carer, it's affected their studies at school, and they drop out halfway through to go back to those caring responsibilities? Aren't we going to see an impact on admissions, that students are going to be forced to direct themselves towards admissions of people who are going to then go to fulfil the criteria down the track?
So in relation to the Noble Lady's first question about the impact of debt on students far into the future, I mean, one of the things that I think is genuinely very interesting is, given the level of debt and the amount of debate about debt, the rate at which demand to go to university continues to increase, and continues to increase in very disadvantaged communities. So young people now know, their older brother and sister is grumbling about repaying their student loan. They know that that is the case, and yet there is huge demand for our universities. But I think the Noble Lady would also recognise that there are other taxpayers. Somebody has to pay the costs of higher education, and currently we have a balance between the student themselves and other taxpayers, some of whom haven't been to university, and that is a delicate balance to strike. But if one was to do away with student debt entirely, then somebody's got to pay, and that will obviously fall on every other taxpayer. In terms of the individual examples she gives, whether it be deciding to live in a part of the country or choosing not to take a graduate job, or the grandmother or the carer, I don't think any of those things change as a result of this. What we're saying is you have two courses delivering the same thing, and in one course 40% of people drop out, and the other course 10% of people drop out with a similar profile. Should we not be asking the question why that's happening?